Okay, if you run a body art studio anywhere in the UK, you really need to listen up. This is, without a doubt, one of the most critical updates you're going to get this year. We're about to break down a huge regulatory shift that hits your supply chain, your legal responsibilities, and the products you're using every single day.
So let's get right to it. There are two specific chemicals that could be hiding in plain sight in your studio. I'm talking about in the inks, the jewelry, maybe even the sterilization equipment you're using right this second. And here's the kicker. Under new UK rules, you, the studio owner, are now on the hook for them, legally.
So let me ask you straight up. Do you know what these substances are? And even more important, are you ready for the new legal duties they're about to trigger? If you're hesitating at all, you're going to want to pay very close attention for the next few minutes.
So what's all the fuss about? Well, on March 18th of this year, the UK decided to add some new substances to its main chemical watch list, which is known as UK REACH. Now, this isn't just some bureaucratic paperwork, it's a massive red flag, and two of those chemicals are now pointed directly at our industry.
Okay, let's break these down because this is where it gets really specific to our world. First, you've got N-hexane. Now, this isn't usually an ingredient in your ink, it's a solvent they use to make it. But if it's not cleaned out properly and it's left behind as a residue, it still counts. Then you've got bisphenol AF, or BPAF. This one's found in certain kinds of plastics. Think about ink bottle caps, some jewelry castings, or even those epoxy sterilization containers. The bottom line is, both are now officially flagged for having serious health risks.
But look, this isn't just a friendly heads up. The moment these chemicals are present in your supplies, it triggers some pretty serious legal duties for you as a business owner, and it all comes down to one single number.
And here it is, 0.1%. It seems tiny, right? But if N-hexane or BPFA is found in any article you supply, a bottle of ink, a single piece of jewelry, at a concentration above 0.1% by weight, bam, your legal obligations kick in. There's no wiggle room here, it's black and white. You're either over the line or you're under it.
The official name for these chemicals is Substance of Very High Concern, or SVHC for short, and believe me, that's not just a fancy label. Putting a chemical on this candidate list is basically the first step toward heavily restricting it or maybe even banning it completely down the road. But for right now, it puts all the responsibility for communication onto the supply chain, and guess what? That includes you.
So what does that responsibility actually look like day to day? Well, it pretty much boils down to three core things you now have to do. First, you have to answer any client who asks you about these chemicals. Second, in some cases, you've got to notify the authorities. And third, you have to have the paperwork to prove you know what's in your products.
Let's just focus on that first point for a second, because this is your most immediate risk. If a client walks into your studio and asks, "Does the jewelry you're about to put in me contain a substance of very high concern?" you are now legally on the clock. You have 45 days to give them safety information. And "I don't know" is no longer a legally compliant answer.
Okay, I know, that's the problem. It's a lot to take in. So what's the solution? This is the most crucial part of this whole explainer. What you can do right now to get compliant and protect your business. This is your action plan.
All right, first things first, don't get overwhelmed. You can tackle this. We just need to break it down into a manageable timeline. Your number one priority this week is to start auditing your suppliers and asking questions. Then, over the next month or two, you need to build some systems to handle this stuff. And longer term, you've got to keep an eye on these regulations and maybe even start looking for new suppliers.
And to make it even easier, here is your 7-day checklist. Things you can do right now. Start by asking your suppliers for updated safety data sheets and certificates of analysis. For your ink suppliers, you need to ask them specifically about residual solvent testing for things like N-hexane. You can also search the official ECHIP database, that's a big central database for this stuff, and see if your suppliers have already declared anything. Getting the paperwork in order now is going to save you a world of hurt later. This is where you start.
Now, let's just zoom out for a second. It's really easy to look at all of this and just see more red tape, another headache. But what's happening here is part of a much bigger shift in how our entire industry is being seen and regulated, not just in the UK, but everywhere.
So here's a really crucial point. The UK is now building its own separate list of SVHCs. It's no longer tied to the EU's list, which is way bigger. So what's that mean for you? Well, if you only work in the UK, simple, you follow the UK list. But if you import anything from the EU or you sell to clients there, you're now stuck in the middle. You have a dual compliance burden. You've got to track two different, constantly changing lists of chemicals.
You know, this quote really just hits the nail on the head.
For years, for decades, artists picked their materials based on gut feeling, experience, and trust in their suppliers. That intuition is still incredibly important, but it's just not enough anymore. This shift to a system based on documentation, it's not a punishment. It's a sign that our industry is finally maturing. This is the standard for any professional, health-focused field today.
So we'll leave you with this one question to think about. Take a hard look at your files, at your supplier agreements, at how you talk to your clients. Is your studio's documentation actually ready for this new standard of professionalism? Because the future of body art isn't just about artistry anymore. It's about accountability.